Next, we're going to cover the logic for the difficulty for easy, normal, and hard. So let's go over that. So let's start with the easy button. So I'm going to grab that and drag it into the graph. And if we were to click on it, then what we want to do, we want to get the CPU player. So let's get the CPU player. So we want to get all actors of class. And we're going to get the CPU player. So CPU player underscore BP. We're going to get the first object in the scene, which is element 0, which is ideal because there's only one ball in this game anyway. I'm going to drag off this and I'm going to add a reroute node. And I'm going to highlight all of this, right click, and lapse to function. Let's call this get CPU player. And the output, I'm going to rename it to as CPU player BP. I can now delete the reroute node. So when we click on the easy button, what happens is that we will get the CPU player and we're going to set a variable inside of that class, which is the CPU speed. So we're going to set CPU speed. We're going to set it to a value of 0.25. Then we're going to highlight the button, the easy button, so we know that that's the current difficulty that we've chosen. So I'm going to set button highlighted. We're going to make a linear color. And we'll just go with white for now, so or some sort of gray. So 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, and the alpha is going to be 1. We also need to set the normal and hard highlighted values to be 0 on the alpha. So I'm just going to duplicate these two more times. As a matter of fact, yeah, I think we do need 2 of them because we can only have 1 button per function. So if we were to get a normal button, let's get our normal button and get our hard button. I do believe we can only have one input reference at a time, which is why we have to duplicate the entire function. We could do more work on this function, but we'll leave it as it is for now. And with these, because this is what occurs when we click easy, we're going to set the alpha value for the normal and hard to 0. It's more tidy if just keep it like this. So set the alpha to 0. Okay. And after we do that, we can set difficulty chosen to true. So set difficulty chosen to true. Now, we also need to do the logic that occurs when we click on normal and hard. So let's add a event for when we click on normal. So with the normal button selected, I'm going to add a on clicked, and also with hard button selected, I'm going to add a on clicked. And we're essentially going to do the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to grab all of these, duplicate it, duplicate it again. So when we click on normal, the CPU speed is going to be faster than it is on easy. So instead of 0.25 on normal, it's going to be 0.5. The easy button is not going to be highlighted. The normal button will be highlighted, and the hard button will not be highlighted. And it will set the difficulty chosen to true as well. Now with the hard button, the CPU speed will be 1. The easy button will not be able to see that, so we're going to set the alpha to 0. The normal button, the alpha is going to be 0, and the hard button, the alpha is going to be 1, because that's the chosen level of difficulty for this particular button when it's clicked. And after doing that, it's going to set the difficulty chosen to true as well. So that's the logic for choosing the difficulty. So I'm going to highlight all of this, and I'm going to add a comment called choose difficulty. So press C to add a comment, and let's call it choose difficulty. Now we need to add an event that will constantly listen for when these three variables are true. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to right click and add a custom event. Enter, and I'm going to call this check player status. Okay. I'm going to add a branch node, so I'm going to hold down B, left click, connect them up. And I'm going to grab in these booleans here. So side chosen, color chosen, and difficulty chosen. I'm going to drag off this pin and type and I'm going to choose the and boolean. I'm going to hit this little plus button here to add a new pin. And we're going to connect these up like that and connect this to the condition pin on the branch node. Now it's going to constantly listen for when these are true, and if they are, what we want to do, we want to do this once. So drag off the true, do once. If that's true, then our ready button, we're going to get that, and we're going to set is enabled. It's going to be enabled, and we're going to be allowed to press it. And obviously when we click our, we need to create the event that occurs when we press the ready button. So if we were to highlight that like so, we're going to use a on hovered, sorry, not on hovered, we're going to use a on released event. So click on released. Just going to move it over here. And sorry, what this button will do is, so So when the player is ready, we're going to check whether it's hovered or not. So if we get the ready button, I'm going to duplicate that, drag off this, is hovered. And if that is hovered, I'm going to add a branch node. So hold down B, left click. So if it's hovered and we've released the ready button, then what we're going to do, we're going to get the player, our get player function, and we're going to set the player ready to true. So player ready, set player ready to true. We're going to get the pre-game canvas because we're actually gonna collapse it because we don't want to see it. So I'm going to head back to the designer, and we can see that we have our menu canvas here, which is a variable. So I'm gonna just make sure that it is a variable, and let's go to the back to the graph. So we're going to get the menu canvas like so. So we're going to get it, and we're going to set its visibility. So set visibility. We're going to set it to collapsed. Then we're going to get the player controller. I believe we can just, no, we can't. So we're going to right click get player controller, and we're going to set the input mode to game only. Okay. Now there's some more work that needs to be done on the designer side. So let's just quickly go over that. We need to add another canvas to the canvas panel. So up here in the palette, I'm going to type canvas. I'm going to drag a canvas panel down onto the canvas. And with the canvas selected, I'm going to rename it to score canvas. I'm going to resize this canvas to 1920 by 1080. So size X 1920 and Y 1080. I'm going to add some text to this. So if I just go here, type text, let's drag the text down onto the score canvas. Now make sure score canvas is a variable, and this first text element or child of that score canvas, I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it player score underscore text. So player score underscore txt, and that too is going to be available a variable. Okay. And I'm going to duplicate that. So right click it, duplicate it. Let me try that again. So right click, duplicate. So this second one, I'm going to rename it to CPU score underscore text. So CPU score underscore txt. and make sure that's a variable as well. Let's set their positions. So I'm just going to hide the menu canvas by closing this eyeball here. And the score canvas, sorry, wrong eyeball. It's actually the eyeball of the menu canvas that I want to hide. So hide that. So this score canvas, I'm going to reposition the text on it. So for the player score, I'm going to set its position X to 852. So 852 on the X, and on the Y 144. And for the CPU text, for the computer score text, I'm going to set the position X to 1036, so 1036, and on the Y 144, just like the player score. Now I'm going to change both of those to 0. And I'm going to change their sizes to 72. So I'm going to click on player score and I'm going to change its size to 72. I believe we can change both of them simultaneously, so I'm going to select this one, hold down Control and select that one, and go to do a search for font, and then in the size I'm going to change that to 72. As you can see, they've exceeded their boundaries, so I'm going to go erase font and do a search for size 2 and enable size to content on these text values. Okay, so good to go. So with the, cross that out. So with the player score, let's set what that text says. So what I'm going to do is create a new binding for it. So we do that by going to the text area, as you can see here, where it says text. To the right, it says bind. Let's create a binding. And remember, this is player score. So I'm going to create a binding for that. And in here, what we're going to do, we're going to get the player. We're going to use our get player function. Connect this up. And we're going to get the player score. So get player. Let's create the bindings for the player score. So with the player score selected, we're going to go to the area where it says content and text. We're going to create a binding for that. So hit bind and create binding. So in here, what we're going to do, we're going to get the player. We're going to get the player like so. And I'm going to connect this up. We're going to get player score. And we're going to connect this straight to the return value. You see this little conversion function here, which converts the integer to a to text. Okay, so that's for the player score. We're going to do the same for the computer score. So under content, where it says text, you're going to create a binding for this text. It's going to be a similar thing. So for the CPU score, we're going to get the player and we're going to get the CPU score. So get player, we're going to get CPU score, and we're going to connect that to the return value on the output node. Okay, so that's done. So I'm just going to head back to the designer, and I'm going to hide the score canvas. So with the score canvas selected, I'm going to do a search for visibility, and we're going to set it to be collapsed because we don't want to see it to begin with. I'm just going to hide that and just bring back the menu canvas. Let's head over to the graph and finalize the logic for this widget class. So when we release the ready button, what will happen is that we will set the visibility of the score canvas, which is this score canvas here. Just make sure that the score canvas is a variable and that its children are also variables. So on the released ready button, so when the ready button is released, it does all of this, and we will get the score canvas, which is here. Just drag it in, get score canvas, and we're going to set the visibility of it. So set visibility. So connect that up, and it's going to be visible. And that's all we need for that. So I'm going to highlight all of this, and I'm going to press C, and I'm going to call this player ready. Lastly, we need to make sure that the text, both the player score text and the CPU score text, are on their correct sides. So if the player's on the left, we want the player score text to be on the left. If the player's on the right, we want the player score text to be on the right. So each score text needs to be on their corresponding side, the correct corresponding side. So I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to create a custom function, custom event. Select that, and we're going to call this set score text positions. So what happens here is that we get the player from our get player function. We get the side index, and what we're going to do, we're going to say if it equals 0, get a branch. So hold down B, left click, connect this up. If it equals 0, then we want to set the player score text to be a given position. So let's see, let's get player score text, and we're also going to get the CPU score text. So if equals 0, then we're going to get the slot as kind of a slot. We're going to set the position. If that's true, and if it's false, we're also going to set the position. Let's do the same for the CPU text. So it needs one of I'm going to select all three of these, duplicate them, select, drag off this pin and connect it to the widget input on the slots canvas slot function. Just connect these up like that. So if the side index is 0, then the player score text will be 852 on the X and 144 on the Y. And if it's not equal to 0, then that means it's on the right side. So 1036 and 144. So that's for the player score canvas. So let's do the CPU score canvas. Player score text and CPU score text. So let's go over the CPU score text now. So if the side index equals 0, then the CPU score text rightfully remains on the right side. So on the x-axis for that, or x position, it's going to be 1036, and the y is 144. Essentially the opposite of this. And if it's not on the right, then the CPU score text will be 852. So 852 and 144 on the y. So 852x, 144 on the y. So I'm just going to drag a box over all of this and let's give it a comment called set score text positions. So let's make sure that the right events are being called. So I'm going to go up the top and I'm going to add a event tick. So right click, event, EVENTTICK, event tick. And what we're going to do here, we're going to set score text positions and we're going to check player status. Those are the two events that are going to be called in this class, this widget class. So I'm going to highlight that, press C, I'm going to call it events, change its color to red, and I'm going to color its bubble like that. So just compile that and save. I believe we should be good to go from here. Let's go over the logic that the pause menu UI has. Now the pause menu has a shine canvas as well. So let's just copy the logic we have from the main menu, because the main menu has a shine canvas and this logic is already set up. So let's just borrow the shine sparkle from that class. So I'm just going to highlight all of this and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to head back to the pause menu UI. I'm going to go to the graph. I'm just going to remove these for now. And I'm going to paste in those nodes. As you can see, it recognized the components with the same name, but others, like this one variable here, is grayed out. So I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to create a variable called xpos. And that's our shine sparkle functionality sorted. Okay, so let's go over the functionality that happens when we resume the game and quit to menu. Before we do that though, we need to set the input mode to game and UI. So let's head back to the main menu UI and I'm going to copy the set input mode nodes. So copy that and come back to pause menu and I'm going to paste it here. And that is our set input mode done. So now we have the resume button and the turn to menu button. Let's go over the resume button. So when the player presses the resume button, we actually want to use on released. So click on released. And I'm just going to drag this in, this resume button. Get it? We're going to check if it's hovered. So drag off that pin is hovered. Going to add a branch node. So if this is hovered, then what will happen is we're going to set the game paused. So set game paused, and we're going to set it to false, which it already is. And then we're going to remove this widget from the parent. So remove from parent. Okay. Next, we have the return to menu button, which you can see here, return to menu. So click on that, and we're going to add a on hovered, sorry, not on hovered, on released event. So click on that, and let's get our button. So we get our return to menu button. Just going to copy this. So duplicate that. If return to menu button is hovered and we've released the left mouse button, then what we'll do, we'll open level. And the level that will open is the menu map. So put menu map into here. So that will return to our map called menu map. Make sure the name is exactly the same. And also make sure the case is exactly the same. Okay, so that should be that. I'm just going to drag a box over all of this, and I'm going to press C. And let's call this input events. Then I'm going to go up the top, and I'm going to add a begin play. So right click and type begin play. Oh, this is a widget, so we want event construct. And we're going to add an event tick. So add an event tick. That was quite useful actually, because event construct has the same or similar behavior as a begin play. That's smart how they done that. I like it. Okay, so let's add a set input mode, which we'll call our set input mode event. And from the event tick, shine sparkle, which is the shine sparkle event. So I'm going to drag a box over all that, press C. Let's call it events. I'm going to make its color red. And let's color the bubble. So we can compile that and save.